Over the past year and a half, local communities and entities have declared racism a public health crisis, renewing a commitment to addressing systemic issues in government, healthcare, and education.
This morning, our Ryan Jenkins goes 360 to check on the progress being made in this pervasive pandemic.
From education to healthcare, housing to economics, we've seen how different departments are coming together to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And that ability to tackle one issue is a lesson in how to fight another public health crisis, racism. To fully understand how and why, we're going 360.
Talking to the mayor of Milwaukee about the ongoing fight for equitable housing. The senior vice president of Advocate Aurora Health addresses the health system and how it plays a role. And the chairwoman of the Black Educators Caucus of Milwaukee shares how education is impacted. But first, we're talking to Milwaukee County's Director of Health and Human Services, nearly 2 years after Milwaukee County became one of the first in the nation to declare racism as a public health crisis.
When we passed this resolution back May of 2019, we really were looking at how do we advance racial equity? How do we improve the health outcomes of people that we serve and make that a top priority of Milwaukee County government.
Shakita LeGrant says the county is making progress in the push towards equity, focusing on 5 areas: workforce, equitable resources and programs, data surrounding disparities, and new revenue to be used to form new preventative resources while still addressing current issues.
We have to look at the way that people are living. We have to break down those barriers so people don't have to beg for the simple things that we all should have, and that is a great education, that is housing, affordable housing, and housing that is of quality, that is transportation, that is access to healthcare.
Each of those areas plays a major role in attacking racism. LeGrant says the county helped prevent more than 4,000 evictions during the COVID-19 pandemic. She says 83% of the families helped were Black. Milwaukee's Mayor Tom Barrett says equitable housing is a priority. The city followed the county in 2019 in declaring racism a public health crisis, months before COVID-19 highlighted disparities in our community and before several police shootings of Black Americans sparked renewed calls for racial equity nationwide.
Without a doubt, if you look at all of the demonstrations and all of the arguments that we heard last summer in the Black Lives Movement and the social justice and racial justice movement, housing has been a big part of that. It's a big part of that. And this is an area where the city has really been in the forefront in trying to create more quality housing.
The mayor says the city is funneling $6 million from tax incremental districts towards housing in the community and is also developing opportunities for low-income families to get the down payments needed to buy a home and build wealth.
We all recognize that having a safe place to live, having a roof above your head and heat is really important.
Also important is access to health care. Erica Joy Daniels is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Advocate Aurora Health, a healthcare system that serves Southeast Wisconsin and declared racism a public health crisis last year.
We saw in so many ways last year that our communities were not living well. And what was our role and responsibility to help to make sure that we were part of a solution and not contributing to the pain and problem?
Daniels points to investments in communities by partnering with minority-owned businesses and focusing on areas where disparities are common in the African-American community, like hypertension.
Education, information, cooking demonstrations, understanding food access and making sure that we can all have a chance to live this thing called life well.
From housing and healthcare to education, Angela Harris is the chairwoman of the Black Educators Caucus of Milwaukee and a teacher within the Milwaukee public school system.
We have an anti-racism, anti-bias resolution. Our district 6 years ago supported Black Lives Matter, the movement.
She says it's encouraging to see more districts addressing racism head on, but she says there's still a lot of work to do.
COVID-19 and the pandemic of racism are, coming to a reckoning at the exact same time.
She worries about the learning loss students may experience after nearly a year of virtual learning. She says resources like reading and math specialists will be the key to moving forward. Harris adds that having Black teachers in classrooms has an undeniable impact on student success. And there's another shift that is moving things in the right direction.
Something when I was in school that I don't remember seeing much of is, lesson plans, children's books, movies that had Black characters. We're seeing a lot more of that now. How important is that for these students, especially younger students?
Well, I mean, it's so important. A Black child should be able to open up a book and see themselves as a zookeeper or a veterinarian or a scientist or a mathematician.
Celebrating our past and culture is so important, but these sources say so is writing a new history this Black History Month and beyond. Ryan Jenkins, TMJ4 News.